Hello everyone, welcome to Options with Doug, streaming live on Monday and Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure, all Bookmap Limited materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure, trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss. It is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. The best way to get in touch with me is through Discord. My name on Discord is Doug P. Also in Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Doug chat channel. You can post questions, comments, and content related to the topics of my presentation and the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. I'm also on X. My name there is @DougPless. Just want to let everyone know there are still a few sales going on for Bookmap, good through the end of the year. First of all, the Black Friday sale continues. That is 50% off Global Plus quarterly subscription plus 50% off 3-month data subscription. Next deal, Bookmap Cyber Monday, 60% off Global Plus monthly plus data for 1 month. Again, good through the end of the year. Also, Bookmap add-on deals, 50% off add-ons like the MBO bundle, and that is good also through the end of the year. Then finally, the Blue Jacket competition, and what you need to do is post a screenshot showing how you're using add-ons and include the hashtag #FreeBlueJacket. Here are the key tenets to my approach to trading. I believe that options trades and market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price in many stocks and futures. That certainly applies to the large cap tech stocks like the Magnificent Seven stocks, as well as the equity index futures like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index, SPY is the ETF version of that index, and the ES futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and hedge their delta exposure with the ES futures. And for the NASDAQ 100, NDX is the underlying index, QQQ is the much more liquid ETF version of that index, and the NQ futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And just like the S&P 500, when traders buy and sell puts and calls in NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with NQ futures. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Doug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a 2-step process for trading, and the first is planning. And I use positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned to the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a thesis regarding the expected trading range and volatility for the day as well as the directional bias. And the second step in my process is execution. I look at real-time order flow in Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow in Spotgamma Hero to confirm my thesis and for setups. And when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on an underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options, depending on the asset as well as the way you like to trade. Questions and comments are welcome, and I will be watching both the Options-Doug chat channel as well as the chat and YouTube for your questions or comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. Here's my agenda for the day, Monday, December 22nd. First of all, we'll go over news items, economic data, and events for this coming week. Then I'll go through my positional analysis. Then I'll review some setups from earlier today. Then I'll take a look at the live market. And when I get to the live market, if anyone has any stocks they want me to take a look at, please let me know and I'll be glad to do that. All right, let's get started. news items. There are just a couple of data releases this week. Let's take a quick look at that. This is the Spotgamma dashboard home screen. Let's take a quick look at the events calendar. I don't believe all of this information is correct, but the data that is correct, as far as I know, GDP will be released tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, as well as durable goods orders. All right, so that's tomorrow. That is the higher impact data. And then on Wednesday, jobless claims do come out. There, that's shown. And then also the market closes early at 1 p.m. on Wednesday, Christmas Eve. And note, I will not be streaming on Wednesday due to the early market close. All right, so that's a very light week. Christmas holiday coming up on Thursday. And then Friday, the market will be open again. All right, let's move on to positional analysis. Let's take a look at the S&P 500. This is the ES futures and Bookmap. And this morning, ES was trading in somewhat of a downward sloping channel. And then right around 11 a.m. broke out above that channel, broke out above this combo level. That's a SPY combo level, as well as this round number level for SPY, and moved up to the SPY 683 large gamma 2 level, as well as the ES upper daily expected move, which has been acting as resistance. So again, that is the ES upper daily expected move acting as resistance. And also overall S&P 500 trading at a very narrow range. And Massive Occital, welcome, glad you're here. All right, so that's the S&P 500. Before we take a closer look at this chart, let's step back. Let's take a look at our higher time frame. I'm going to go to the SPX, the underlying index. And price action this year dominated by the rally that began early in April and started to slow down right around October 10th. That is the October 10th tariff tantrum, and that was somewhat of a tone change in the market. It became more choppy, still moving up. With resistance around 6,900. All right, so let's take a look at a little bit shorter time frame. Let's go to a 30-day 1-hour chart now to pick up the most recent price action. So the most recent high impact day here was the reaction the day after NVIDIA reported earnings. And note, SPX did trade down below the 1010 low, but rallied up to right around 6,900. Broke down last week, and then the rally began last Thursday. Current swing in the market began last Thursday. And it looks like SPX may be heading back up towards 6,900. On this chart, I'm going to start with the expected moves. These are based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from last Friday. The dashed purple lines are showing the lower and upper weekly expected move. This is based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX, again from last Friday. Those levels remain in place for the entire week. Then the dashed blue lines are showing the lower and upper daily expected move for SPX. Also based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from last Friday. Those levels change every day. Note, SPX is trading up above the upper daily expected move that did act as resistance earlier today. And right now, the ES upper daily expected move, again, has been acting as resistance. And note, I do calculate those independently. The SPX and ES close at different times. options close at 4:15 p.m. Eastern Time, and futures close at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So that could account for the difference. And I do post the expected moves for SPX, ES, and NQ every day the day before in the Options-Doug chat channel and Bookmap Discord. All right, so those are the expected moves. Key is SPX trading up above its upper daily expected move, whereas ES seems to be finding a resistance at its upper daily expected move. We'll check again in a couple minutes. All right, so let's take a look now at spot gamma levels on this chart. These are shown with the dark red lines. They're based on gamma-weighted open interest. They're provided to spot gamma subscribers on a variety of trading platforms. Let's zoom in on this just a little bit so we can see the most recent price action and get a closer look at the levels. All right, so let's go from low to high. So starting with the put wall that has moved up to 6,800. Put wall is a strike with large net negative gamma. It can be expected to act as support. And just above that is the volatility trigger at 68.35. And that is spot gamma's proprietary volatility and gamma flip level. Below that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade with price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. Above that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is positive. In a positive gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility. And then next level up is 7,000. That is the absolute gamma strike and the call wall. The absolute gamma strike is the strike with large absolute positive and negative gamma. That's where most of the gamma-weighted open interest is concentrated. And the call wall is the strike with largest net positive gamma that can be expected to act as resistance. And note, 3 levels did move higher compared with Friday. The volatility trigger, put wall, and absolute gamma strike all moved higher, so that is a bullish hat trick for SPX. And actually the same for SPY. There was another bullish hat trick. Volatility trigger, put wall also moved higher, and the call wall moved higher for SPY. So a bullish hat trick for SPX and SPY. All right, so let's wrap up our view of SPX. With a 1-minute chart so we can get a closer look at the most recent price action. Go to a 1-minute chart. And we'll zoom in just a bit so that on last Thursday there was a gap up, chop. But that's really when the current swing began. Swing higher. And not a lot of spot gamma levels in play for today, just this combo 1 level right here. And price was oscillating up and down around that level earlier today. SPX, upper daily expected move, acting as resistance until SPX broke out of this downward sloping channel and now chopping around. We'll take a look at trace and see if we can identify why that is, why the SPX is just chopping around right now. We'll take a look at Bookmap as well. All right, let's take a quick look at SPY. So one reason, of course, again, is the ES upper daily expected move. And let's take a look at SPY. Also trading at a narrow range. And finding a resistance. We'll zoom in on this. Finding a resistance at this 685 large gamma 2 level. All right, so SPY. Oops. SPY broke out above this combo level, combo 4 level, and up to the 685 level. That's a large gamma 2 level again, and then finding resistance at that level. All right, so those are the levels in play for SPY. The S&P 500, ES, SPX, SPY. Let's take a look at NASDAQ. NASDAQ a little bit weaker than the S&P 500. And it was just the opposite. Just the opposite on Friday, I believe. All right, so this is the NQ futures of Bookmap. NASDAQ futures. Let me point out some key levels. There's the QQQ 620 absolute gamma strike call wall. That level now acting as resistance. And then here's the NDX 25,470 large gamma 3 call wall. So let's take a look. And by the way, I forgot to mention on the S&P 500, there is quite a difference in the price between ES and SPX. And today it is somewhere between 53 and 54 points. I'm using 53. So I'm showing, let's say, SPX 6900 at ES 6953. All right, back to NASDAQ. All right, so let's take a look at the underlying index components before we get back to this chart. We'll start with QQQ. Let's zoom in on this. So again, the 620 level, key for today, that is the call wall absolute gamma strike acting as resistance. And note, again, NASDAQ has not broken out to newer highs like the S&P 500. All right, let's take a look at NDX. Trading at a very narrow range today, chopping up and down around these Spotgamma levels, and that is the key level here is the call wall at 25,470, and prices chopping up and down around that level. And note the levels have shifted around quite a bit with the expiration on last Friday and the new levels for today. Shifts in levels for NASDAQ. For NDX, all 4 levels shifted higher. So taken alone, that is very bullish. And then for QQQ, volatility trigger higher, put wall shifted lower, and the absolute gamma strike shifted higher. All right, so that is the NASDAQ. We'll take a look at setups in just a couple of minutes. All right, so right now, NASDAQ trading up and down around the 25,470 call wall and below VWAP, which is shown with this light blue line here. All right, let's wrap up our positional analysis by taking a look at a picture of gamma to get a sense of the current level of potential volatility and look for any pinning targets. So we'll go to Spotgamma trace. This is the gamma heat map. And this is showing a current view of gamma. So the levels that we've just taken a look at are updated once a day. Again, based on gamma weighted open interest. Open interest is updated once a day. This data is updated every 10 minutes. Again, it's the gamma heat map. Red shading shows negative gamma. Blue shading shows positive gamma. And remember, in negative gamma, we're looking for higher volatility, wider price range. Not necessarily the case today. but that the potential is there. And then blue shading up above showing positive gamma. And again, remember in positive gamma, we're looking for slower price action, more mean reverting price action, lower volatility. And note earlier today, this positive gamma right here at positive GEX bar, gamma exposure bar at 68.60 looked like it was in play, and now price is trading up above that level. And that is part of a call spread. This is market makers' position showing their long 68.60, short 68.65. So that indicates traders are just the opposite. So some large traders sold 68.60, 68.65 call spread, and so far not very happy about that. Since that's in the money now. All right, so that's trace. SPX in negative gamma. All right, so let's move on. Let's take a look at some setups. And we'll start with the S&P 500. And as always, I'm going to start by taking a look at what options traders have been doing today. This is the Spotgamma Hero signal. Hero stands for Hedging Impact Real-Time Options. So what this chart is showing is options trades and market maker hedging activity for the S&P 500 index components. That is SPX SPY. We've already taken a look at those two indexes. It also includes ES and XSP. The white line is price for SPX, and the purple line is the Hero signal. And the direction of the Hero signal indicates options delta. So a rising Hero signal indicates traders are taking positive delta options positions. They're buying calls and or selling puts. Market makers take the opposite side of those trades, and they have to buy ES futures to hedge their delta exposure. And then a falling Hero signal indicates traders are taking negative delta options positions. They're buying puts and or selling calls. And market makers, again, take the opposite side of the trades, and they have to sell ES futures to hedge their delta exposure. So it's again been a pretty choppy market today. And earlier today, there were just a series of short scalps with these turning points. Long scalp, short scalp, long scalp. And then again, this eventually resolved to the upside. Note that flow alert that came out just before price broke above that downward sloping channel right around 11 a.m., indicating significant options activity. So a move higher and then consolidation again. All right, so that is the S&P 500 equity signal. I thought it provided a little bit more clarity earlier this morning. There's another Hero signal that we can take a look at for the S&P 500, and that is the S&P 500 equity signal. This is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for all 500 stocks in the S&P 500 index. And the key here, the signal that really corresponds with price, is this reversal higher, right around 1035, something like that, as traders started taking positive delta positions in the S&P 500 equities. So generally, this is the signal that I like to use first. This is the signal that I look at first, the S&P 500 Hero signal. It's typically a little bit more choppy than the equity signal, but it does often provide a better signal at the turning points. All right, so let's go look at Bookmap now. So we know that it was a choppy morning with a series of shorts and longs, and then a breakout right around 11 a.m. Remember, the S&P 500 equity signal began to move higher right around 1035. That's shown there. You can see a Bookmap. Volume dots show aggressive buyers started to come in as price was moving higher. Sellers are exhausted. So the volume dots of Bookmap show market buy minus sell. Magenta dots indicate more sellers than buyers. Green volume dots indicate more buyers than sellers. So note at that time, first of all, buy stop orders shown by the yellow line in the subchart helped to fuel that move higher. Also, cumulative volume delta shown by the dark blue line started to rise. And note at the same time, large traders are fading that move with iceberg orders they use to hide their size. That's shown by the following light blue line. And that is pretty typical behavior for large traders with iceberg orders to fade the move, to sell strength and buy weakness. All right, so again, choppy morning, but the main setup really was to take this last move higher as the S&P 500 equity signal started to move higher. It's take that long. There was the, I guess, the more aggressive entry, and then the more conservative entry would have been at the breakout of this downtrend. And get about half of the move or so. All right, so that's the S&P 500. And let's take a look at NASDAQ. And let's see what options traders are doing. So we know also, actually looking at Bookmap here, in contrast to ES, all three lines in this subchart are moving lower. Dark blue line to magenta, that is cumulative volume delta, that's negative for the day. Yellow line showing stop orders, showing sell stop orders, helping to fuel that move lower. And then also the light blue line, again moving lower, showing large traders selling NQ with iceberg orders. Looks like they're starting to do a little bit of buying now, but overall bearish look to the NASDAQ today. Let's take a look and see what options traders are doing. And by the way, I'm using the older version of Hero. It's just a little bit easier when I'm jumping from one chart to another. All right, here's the NASDAQ index signal. So just like the S&P 500, NASDAQ has two Hero signals that we can take a look at. First is the NASDAQ index signal, showing options trades and market maker hedging activity. For the NASDAQ index components, we've already taken a look at a couple of those two, QQQ and NDX. So pretty choppy signal. Basically trending down in the morning, then reversing higher, and then slowing down as NASDAQ, this is showing price for NDX, made it up to the 25,470 call wall. An overall net negative for the day. All right, so let's take a look at the MAG 7 signal. So this is showing, setting up a nice short here, right around 10 a.m. That first deep pullback. And that's a nice peak pattern of the MAG 7 signal. Then it started to reverse higher, around 10:35, 10:37, 38, something like that. All right, so this is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the stocks known as the Magnificent Seven: Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, Nvidia, and Tesla. These stocks make up a very large component of the NASDAQ 100, as well as the S&P 500, and can often drive price or have a significant impact on the indexes. So setups here. Short, this peak pattern just before 10 a.m., then a long 10:35 or so. Let's do one other thing. Let's compare the MAG 7 with the S&P 500 equity signal. which is the Mag 7 plus 493. And note the difference here. After the reversal higher, 1035, reversal higher, the hero signal for the S&P 500 equities is trending higher. Oops, let me draw that again so we can compare. Trending higher. Now we'll go to the Mag 7 signal. Not the case. A little bit higher, but not moving as high as the S&P 500 equity signal. So Mag 7 stocks a little bit weaker today. All right, so back to Bookmap. Let's take a look at NASDAQ. So again, we know aggressive sellers selling NQ, sell stop orders, and large traders with iceberg orders all selling NASDAQ, making a series of lower highs. Remember that 10 a.m. call peak in the Mag 7 signal, and there was your, if you missed this initial entry at the open, there's your signal to go short. Right at 10 a.m. as that, again, the Mag 7 signal made that nice peak reversal pattern. Setting up a nice short. Then there's a long, and really only confirmed by QQQ delta, shown by the rising dark blue line. All right, let's go back to Hero now. And I'm going to shift to puts and calls. I'm going to have to jump to avoid auto zoom, jump back. All right, so you can see this peak pattern here in the Mag 7 signal just before 10 a.m. was calls. Traders were buying calls. They abruptly stopped buying calls and started selling calls. Same for puts. They stopped selling puts and abruptly started buying puts, and price reversed lower and did not reverse higher until traders started selling puts and buying calls. All right, so that's the indexes, S&P 500 and NASDAQ. Any questions? Any questions about the indexes? Well, let's take a look at some stocks then. And just go, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them, and I'll take a look and do my best to answer. All right, so let's take a look at, we're going to take a look at quite a few of the Mag 7 stocks. So first of all is Apple, and this is a bearish opening drive. Traders selling calls from the open. When traders sell calls, market makers buy the calls, and they have to sell stock to hedge their delta exposure since they want to remain delta neutral. So that's a bearish opening drive, mainly driven by call sellers. And note, for a while, the call sellers took the foot off the gas, bought a few calls, but then started selling calls again. Right around 11:30, then that began to accelerate afternoon. Next key level down below is the 270 key gamma strike. So let's go take a look at Bookmap. Whoops. We'll go to Apple. Not a wide range of movement, definitely a nice move down today. Remember how traders started buying calls a little bit after 10:30, then started selling calls again. That set up a nice re-entry point for a short. So if you missed all these deep pullbacks for short, then the next entry would have been just after 11 a.m. there, as the call signal started to shift down again. And remember the key target at 270. The heat map in Bookmap shows limit orders, and limit orders down below are limit buy orders, and those orders tend to attract price. Again, that's shown on the heat map, and you can see sometimes these levels act as support. That is the 271.50 level, acting as support a couple of times until price finally broke through. Found support at 270.50. And if price breaks through that, those limit buy orders, then the next level, obvious level down below is the 270 level, which is again the call wall. I think that's right. Oh, that's the key gamma strike. 270 key gamma strike. All right, so that's Apple. Traders continue to sell calls, and put buyers. There's some put buyers, but not nearly as aggressive as the call sellers. All right, so that's Apple, and of course that is contributing to the move down in the NASDAQ. Next stock, Meta. Meta, a couple of very nice hero patterns here. First of all, the bullish opening drive. Traders buying calls at the open, shown by the rising orange line when traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls, and they have to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure. And if you did not see that at the open, this flow alert signals significant options activity, and it got your, if you're watching the hero signal, got your attention. Bullish opening drive, and then this is a call exhaustion pattern. Meta is, this is very common in Meta, either more often a call peak reversal pattern, but this is call exhaustion, where the call line flattens out, and then Meta makes a double top, and then reverses lower as traders start selling calls. So they're buying calls. Call buyers took the foot off the gas. NVIDIA stalled, made a double top, and then traders started selling calls, and price broke lower. At the same time, they started buying puts. So that's bearish momentum, with both the blue line and the orange line moving in the same direction. So let's go take a look at Bookmap. We'll go to Meta. Let's zoom in on this. Meta bullish opening drive. Traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls, and they have to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure. You can see the heat map shows limit sell orders at the round numbers from 669 to 673, and then more limit orders at 675. Price did not make it up to that level. Remember, the call buyers took their foot off the gas just after 9:45, and then they started selling calls just before 10 a.m. and Meta reversed lower. So again, bullish opening drive, call exhaustion, and then bearish momentum after that as traders started selling calls and buying puts. Let's see where Meta might be headed. All right, so Meta chopping up and down around the 660 level. All right, back to Hero. And note the call sellers and put buyers have taken the foot off the gas, with both lines have flattened out. All right, next stock I want to take a look at is Microsoft. Let's zoom in on the morning, early morning here. This was a little call peak that happened just a minute or two. Looks like just about 2 minutes after the cash opened, setting up a nice short. And it looks like what slowed this down a bit is this large block order right here. Large trader or traders selling puts. That's a bullish trade, and it looks like that slowed down Microsoft from falling. Also, the call sellers eventually took their foot off the gas, and then they started buying calls, starting right around 10:45. So call peak just after the open, setting up a nice short that did not last long. A little bit more difficult to read than Meta. So let's go take a look at Bookmap. Go to Meta, Microsoft. All right, so there's that call peak reversal that happened just about a minute or two after the cash open. Then the sharp reversal lower. And now traders are back in buying Microsoft shares. That's shown about all the green volume dots starting right around here. Green volume dots, rising cumulative volume delta. So a lot of aggressive buyers have started to come in. And you can see the sharp shift here as that last magenta dot and then aggressive buyers. So the sellers become exhausted and the buyers come in. Shown by all the green volume dots. All right, so that's Microsoft. Next stock I want to take a look at is Tesla. Tesla was really strong, has been strong recently, and certainly strong before the cash open. All right, let's take a look. Let's see what options traders are doing. Very strong correlation between price action and options trades. That is the very typical for Tesla. So bullish opening drive that lasted for about 21 minutes. Traders buying calls and selling puts. Price move higher. Then here's this sharp reversal. Traders buying calls, selling puts, and they all of a sudden take the opposite side of the position, selling calls and buying puts. Price reverses lower, so that's a peak reversal pattern, very nice. Then bearish momentum as traders sell calls and buy puts, and price moves lower. All right, zoom into more recent price action. So right now, the call buyers have come back in, and Tesla's trying to move higher. All right, so let's go to Bookmap. So there's that call peak reversal pattern, or the peak reversal pattern, right at 498. And the reversal right around 10:30. Took a while to resolve. All right, that's Tesla. All right, next stock, Robinhood. And again, if anyone has any stocks they want me to take a look at, please let me, and I'll be glad to do that. All right, Robinhood, bearish move also. Trading below VWAP, shown by the light blue line there. Let's see what options traders have been doing. Go to Robinhood. Zoom in on this just a bit. little bit of a peak reversal pattern here. This is just a couple minutes after the cash open. And note key here is this flow alert just before the call signal and put signal briefly reverse lower. So call peak and then Robinhood reverses lower as traders sell calls and buy puts. Let's see what Bookmap looks like. All right, so Robinhood making a series of lower highs, tries to reverse higher, and now just chopping up and down around the 122 level. Let's take a look at the entire range here. All right, so about a 3-point movement in intraday movement in Robinhood. Again, nice alert, call, a reversal of the call signal. Let's take a look at Palantir. Let's see what options traders have been doing. Palantir. This set up a very nice short. More of a divergent short. His price was making equal highs. Hero made slightly lower highs than the call signal. So for a few minutes, traders were buying calls and selling puts that show by the rising blue line. First clue, traders stop selling puts, buying calls. So they stop buying calls. Flow alert signals significant options activity. They stop buying selling puts, and then start selling calls. Price breaks lower, also out of a double top pattern there. Let's go take a look at Bookmap. All right, so here's the reversal setup. Looks like buyers are exhausted, sellers start to come in. You can see all the magenta volume dots right there, just above 197. Cumulative volume delta starts to fall, and price drops lower. Good for about a 5-point move lower, and now Palantir is gradually grinding lower. So a lot of reversal patterns, either peaks or exhaustion in the first half hour of trade. All right, one more stock I want to take a look at is Micron. Micron reported earnings last Wednesday, blowout report. Traded much higher and was trading much weaker this morning, and now moving back higher, trying to recover. So let's see what options traders have been doing at Micron. All right, so this morning they were selling calls. This set up a very nice divergent short. Call signal trending lower. as price tried to make new highs. So kind of a triple top there. And then micro reverse lower down toward the 270 call wall. All right, let's go take a look in Bookmap. All right, so now the call sellers took their foot off the gas right around 11. And we'll see what was happening after that. Call buyers came in, the stock buyers, sorry. All right, so this is the divergent short right here, just before 10 a.m. Buyers are exhausted. Traders start selling call or continue to sell calls as price moves lower. Primary target, 270 call wall. Looked like price was going to stay down below that level, but now Micron has recovered the call wall, trading up above that as traders buy calls. Also, as the call wall is a strike with large net positive gamma. That's where most of the calls are concentrated. So traders are long calls, market makers are short calls. As those calls go deeper in the money, market makers delta notional decreasing or becoming more negative, and they have to continue to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure as price moves up above that call wall. There's a call wall breach. Traders buying stock, showing rising cumulative volume delta. So Micron, after a bearish opening drive, now recovering and trading up above the 270 call wall. All right, back to Hero. A little bit of interesting hedging flow action there. It looks like there were some large block orders. Someone selling a lot of calls. So far does not seem to have much impact on price. Looks like they came in later and sold a few puts. All right, so that's Micron. All right, any questions? Does anyone have any stocks they want me to take a look at? All right, let's go back. Let's check the indexes. I'm going to shift back to the total signal. Go to the S&P 500. SPX has been chopping around since right around 1120. Check the equity signal. Has also pretty much flattened out since 1 p.m. Check NASDAQ. NASDAQ signal. Again, remember, this is QQQ and NDX. Moving down lower. Check MAX 7. It's also flat. And this is probably pretty typical holiday week behavior. Price action in the morning and then just consolidation, just flat, low volume in the afternoon as traders have gone to their holiday parties or taking time off for the week. All right, so let's go back to Bookmap. Back to ES, still stuck below the ES upper daily expected move. Looks like some aggressive buyers are starting to come in. There's plenty of activity in the heat map. Limit sell orders above, limit buy orders below. Check NASDAQ. NASDAQ still below the call walls and the and VWAP. All right, anyone have any stocks they want me to take a look at? Let's go back to Hero. One stock I meant to check on this morning, Oracle. Oracle starting to recover from the deep drop last couple of weeks. News came out last week about Oracle's involvement with the TikTok sale to, I guess, the U.S. U.S. part of TikTok. So Oracle, again, recovery continues. Nice long setup here. Full alert comes in just a few minutes after the cash opened, signaling significant options activity and potential reversal and hedging flow from negative delta to positive delta. That's what happened a couple of minutes later. Oracle moving higher. Let's shift over to puts and calls. We can see that traders have been buying calls and selling puts. Back to total. Let's go back to the S&P 500. One thing I want to check is next expiry. So this purple line is showing options that expire, all expirations at today, tomorrow, end of the week, end of the year, end of the month, next year. And then the next expiry, which for the S&P 500 would be 0 DTE, is shown by the teal line. So it looks like almost all the trade today is in 0 DTE options. The close proximity, close correlation between the teal line and the blue line showing just day trading today. Traders trading 0 DTE options in the S&P 500 index components. All right, back to Bookmap. NASDAQ still below the call walls, VWAP. Let's go check trace. See if we can find a potential pin. Go to trace. So the only positive gamma in the close range here is 6860. And that was in place at the open. Let's shift to the charm pressure. What we're looking for is potential pin target. So the blue shading is showing buying support due to time decay, and red showing selling pressure due to time decay. And we'll look at 6860. This is actually showing potential pin target here at 6850 with buying support below, red selling pressure up above. So that may play out differently during the day. All right, back to gamma. So again, this is the only positive gamma strike on the board here in this current range at 6860, which would be equivalent to $69.13. That's given the offset of 53 points. Back to Bookmap. So that would be pretty far down. This is the 68.62 combo level. So it looks like that would require a pretty big move, given the current price action. All All right, last call. Stocks, questions, comments? All right, everyone, I want to thank you very much for watching. Everyone, have a great afternoon. Have a Merry Christmas. Remember, I will not be streaming on Wednesday, and I will see you next Monday. So have a great holiday, and I will see you on Monday. Bye. Thanks.